Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my weekly cult situation report. I'm Daniela Mestenek-Young, scholar of cults, extreme groups, and extremely bad leadership. I've written a book called Uncultured, which is about growing up in the Children of God religious cult and then going into the cult of the United States Army. The first time a cult leader was running America, I published that. You can get signed copies attached here or listen to it on Spotify Premium or anywhere else you get your audiobooks. Yes, I read it myself. Every week, I do a roll-up of everything that has gone on in the world of cults and in my world of cults. So let's tuck in, because today we are going to start with Scientology. Fun fact, most of us cult experts have stayed away from the discussion of Scientology because Scientology likes to sue. But I've recently come to find out they've changed their policy on that because when you sue someone, they get discovery, and they kept accidentally being proven to be a cult. Ha 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 ha. All right, we will of course get to some comments on the cult of MAGA. I'm going to tell you about the veteran sit-in that I went down and participated in, that Mr. Knitting Cult Lady will be going to today, and I will hopefully going back to over the weekend. And we will get to updates on the culting of America. But in case you haven't seen the very rebellious cover yet, here it is. Yes, the hair was an Easter egg. So Jenna Miscavige is on TikTok, which is causing a fervor, as it should. Jenna Miscavige is the niece of David Miscavige, who is the current leader of Scientology. Jenna Miscavige also wrote a book in 2013 called Beyond Belief. It is definitely on audio because that's how I listened to it when I was a 22-year-old lieutenant in the United States Army, just trying to figure out what the F had happened to me. And I had a very interesting realization when I was listening to her book because, I started trying to figure out what had happened to me. So I started with all the books about Children of God, and then I went on to FLDS and then sort of regular Mormonism. And I was kind of subconsciously thinking that Christianity was the problem. And then I read Jenna Miscavige's book about growing up in the Sea Org of Scientology. And for those who don't know, it's a made-up religion based on a sci-fi novel that is powering the cult of Scientology. And to remind you, the belief is never the problem. Your belief system can be logical or it can be a made-up sci-fi novel. It doesn't matter. It's about the exploitation of labor every single time. That's where the definition is. And this was part of what the realization was. I realized Christianity wasn't the problem because I recognized my childhood in Jenna Miscavige's description. And specifically, it was the child labor. But I didn't have the words for that for another decade, okay? And this is why I think it's really important to read memoir and theory books while you're deconstructing. Because it wouldn't be till a decade later, after I'd already written Uncultured, that I heard Dr. Janja Lalich say cults are always about labor in clear English. And I said, oh, I understand my life. I think people stop at the what. Children of God believed what? About sexually liberated children? And they don't get to the why. Because we were an army of 10,000 singing, dancing, selling beggars all around the world. Mods, please block that hateful person. Thank you. So then I finally understood my life. And by the way, when I started using the language of child trafficking and exploitation, my own survivor counterparts would turn against me the hardest. So that's a little thing for you if you don't know yet. All right, so David's wife, Shelly, has been missing for a long time. Okay, so Shelly Miscavige has been missing for a long time. She was last seen in public around 2005 to 2007. Reports differ. People have been very vocal about their concerns for her well-being. Was she murdered? Is she being held somewhere against her will? Is she sick or injured? We know from Mike Rinder's book, A Billion Years, that Scientology is one of the rare cults that has decided to imprison people. it is not even necessarily those trying to leave. It's just those questioning and those they think need to be humbled or broken. In Mike Rinder's book, we found out that some Scientologists have been imprisoned for 20 years. Okay, police reports have been filed. Many people have tried to look into it, including Leah Remini, another former Scientologist who is now an active critic of the organization. Recently, Jenna took to TikTok to share her best bet of where Shelly is and what is going on there, and some people were very surprised by her takes. In a video about Shelly going missing, she describes Shelly as the Ghislaine Maxwell to David Miscavige's Jeffrey Epstein, or what I call the skinny white woman. She was active and involved in all the atrocities that Scientology has been perpetrating, including being central to keeping Jenna from escaping when she wanted to leave. According to Jenna, Shelly is very likely living somewhere around Lake Arrowhead in a Scientology compound, where she has been spotted going out to eat and visit the chiropractor, which she notes are not luxuries permitted to rank-and-file Scientologists. We don't even know where Shelly is, but we understand why Jenna thinks it's possible and even probable that Shelly is just living her life in secret. Cults love secrets. They also love isolation. Also, Jenna recently shared a video going into the ways that the cult victim blames and punishes people who speak out against other members of the cult, as we saw happen in the Danny Masterson case. Jenna's videos do a great job of highlighting some of the most dangerous and culty aspects of Scientology, including the different rules for the different ranks of members, exploitation of labor, and the extreme level of control the cult exerts over members. For example, if they're allowed to have children or not. And by the way, with any kind of large cult, so outside of your one-one cults or your single-family cult systems, you often have levels, right? Levels of cultiness. I say there's always a cult inside the cult, right? I grew up in the leadership circles called World Services in Children of God. Same thing AA calls their international leadership. I'll leave that right there. And I had a very different childhood than someone on the outskirts of the Children of God, right? And all of these big cults, including the Catholic Church and the evangelicals, and even the military with the National Guard, have levels at which you can be involved. And they've decided to let some people not be that much in the cult, just sort of participated in it as a religion or as a system, because they just get the money. They get the money and they get the numbers. But then there's always more levels of dedication. This is also true in the military. The more and more specialized you get, the cultier it gets. Okay, Jenna, thank you for speaking out. Your book definitely changed my life. We definitely, if you see this, we would love to connect with you. We would love to have you on our podcast, Cults and the Culting of America, or go live together on TikTok, whatever you would like to do. People are loving all of the information that you are putting out, and thank you so much for putting yourself out there and sharing this with the ex-cult community, because of course Scientology has always been the secret unknown one. Jenna Miscavige, the niece of David Miscavige, who currently runs Scientology, who we have been talking about. And we wish you all the best in your efforts to protect people from the cult of Scientology, which still has giant recruiting centers in all kinds of places, including Times Square. Okay, Cult Digest, Discord edition. Florida just leveled up in the strange headlines department. A 13-year-old was arrested after allegedly diving headfirst into an online cult on Discord. But unlike your usual crystals and chanting in the woods setup, this group went for the greatest hits of evil starter packs, satanic worship, neo-Nazi ideology, child abuse, and even a DIY apocalypse manual. Because apparently, read Harry Potter wasn't enough for them. A few weeks ago, Sheriff Chris Noko had a press conference, described the group as an online cult with zero chill. They idolize school shooters, encourage minors to hurt themselves, and trade blackmail material like Pokemon cards. Instead of robes and Kool-Aid, they've got servers and screen names. And we've talked about this a couple times because they were using Roblox to try to get to children. Please make sure your children understand that they should never leave the Roblox game to go talk to anyone in any kind of other situation. The kid in question allegedly started at age 12, which feels early, even by cult standards. Like, shouldn't you at least get through algebra before plotting mass destruction? Police found him with bomb-making guides and notes on concealing evidence, which is more villain starter kit than middle school science fair project. The FBI is now involved because when your cult goes digital, the feds get involved. And parents are being warned that cult recruitment doesn't just happen in desert compounds anymore. It's happening on the same app your kid uses to talk about Minecraft. And in Culting of America, this is one of the new, or not new, but types of cults that people don't know about, right? We all know about the commune cults, right? And we all have our stereotypes about it. We don't know as much about the 1-1 cults, the abusive relationships, the single family cults, and the internet cults, which are becoming, a bigger and bigger deal. One of the big warnings the sheriff shared was the use of collateral by these online cults. They convince kids to do dangerous, scandalous, illegal things, video it, and share it with the group, and then use those videos as blackmail. Very culty, very NXIVM. Moral of the story, if a Discord server sounds less like Smash Bros. Chat and more like Apocalypse Now Junior Edition, maybe log off and check what your kids are playing, since I don't think the 12-year-olds are listening to the cult situation report. Starbucks, ghost guns, and the prophetess, California's latest cult drama. California police have connected not one, but 2 disappearances to a religious group that ex-members politely call cult-like. Translation, yeah, it's a cult. The group, His Way Spirit-Led Assemblies, led by Daryl Pastor Music Martin and his wife, Shelly Prophetess Cat Martin, was raided this month after years of suspicion. Authorities say they found illegal weapons, ghost guns, and apparently not a whole lot of Holy Spirit. The story began when Emilio Salem Ganem vanished after a Starbucks stop in 2023. Police later tied his disappearance back to the group he'd just left and was inconveniently competing against in the pest control business. Because nothing says cult rivalry like battling exterminator companies. Cults always have a product. Remember that, a product or a service. Then, while investigating, detectives uncovered another missing member, Ruben Moreno, who disappeared way back in 2017 after living with the group. When police finally arrested Pastor Music at the Laguna Hills Lodge, not quite Waco, but close enough, his prophetess wife had to be released after a medical episode, proving once again that the cult drama always comes with plot twists. The group once hosted an event called Rap Around the Throne, but rap. Boom, attack, boom, boom, attack. Yeah. Cults in their raps. Yes, really. And Pastor Music dropped Christian tracks with titles like Testify before allegedly pivoting into illegal firearms and apparently the end times. Authorities are still investigating both missing persons separately, but so far the main common thread is their link to His Way Spirit-Led Assemblies, aka a group where joining the choir might just mean you're never seen again. And speaking of choirs and rap and performance, this is a trend in cults, right? Why are cults always often into performance, like actual performance being one of their products and services? And coming from the performance cult that took in Jeremy Spencer of Fleetwood Mac, horrible man, and produced Rose McGowan and Joaquin and River Phoenix, I have some thoughts. And those thoughts are, well, one, it's a way to gain money and followers, right? Because it's a thing that you do that puts you into contact with new people in the outside world. The Branch Davidians in Waco had a very professional level band, right? And that's part of how they would find new people or just get money. But I also think it's to teach members, especially the children, to be constantly performing all the time. Because the promise of a cult is always a lie. So the people in the cults are always constantly performing all of the time. This is why I came up with my musical concept, right? I was at Hamilton and I was like, oh, I have to be on that stage. That's the culmination of my cult baby life. And since I'm not a Broadway trained actress or dancer, I was like, guess I gotta write a musical. So I came up with Cult Baby the Musical, veterans included. And look, I expected you all to like it. I make pretty great art because I use other people's help and praise them and pay them for it. And I make my living off of making art. So I thought you guys were going to be very excited and be like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Take my money. I can't believe I said you guys, you all. child is bringing this word back into my life. But the actual response was, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Take my money. When can I audition? Which tells me that all of the cult babies and veterans also need to sing and dance out their trauma. And I think a big trend in cults is performance. We know this is definitely true in the military. Cult of MAGA updates. Ooh, the cult of MAHA. Make America Healthy Again. Cult within a cult. People often ask me if someone can be in two cults at once, and the answer is yes, until or unless they come into conflict. Then one cult is going to come first, right? For example, the Duggars are a single family cult within the larger cult of ILBP. There's a part of the cult of MAGA that self-identifies as being cult of the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again. MAHA has its own charismatic leader and its own mission, RFK Jr., who's on some kind of anti-science crusade to bring back polio and measles by convincing people that vaccines make them sick. And vaccines and being anti-vaccine is a purity requirement that cults have hopped onto from the very beginning of the existence of vaccines, right? Because it's very easy to convince people that they're squirting poison into their body and they're just no longer pure. We are all aware that some people have adverse reactions to vaccines, just like some people are allergic to peanuts or penicillin or roses. This does not make them inherently dangerous and bad for all people, any more than peanuts are dangerous for all people. So RFK, who seems to really dislike disabled people for being disabled, seems to want to disable more people by making preventative care for things like COVID harder to access. He's also big on spreading baseless fears about vaccine safety around things like the hepatitis B vaccine, while being weirdly enthusiastic about beef tallow. It's been pretty clear to anyone paying attention that he would dismantle the CDC if given the opportunity. And unfortunately, when Trump was elected, he was given that exact opportunity. One thing I talk about a lot now is that it's the time to listen to experts, because experts actually know things. Kennedy is not an expert in health. He's not a doctor. He's just some guy with a fancy family and a lot of opinions who has enough charisma to make people care about his opinion. And oh, remember that being in two cults things? He's also involved with Scientology, and he's also an AA stepper. Truly, the knitting cult team wants to stress that there is precisely nothing special about this guy. He does not know more about vaccines or health or safety than the many doctors and scientists who know that vaccines are safe and healthy. He has no special knowledge. He's not better than anyone. In fact, he's worse at his job than some random person picked off the street, because he's hell-bent on convincing people he's right or getting them out of the way if they interfere with his ghoulish ambitions. And all cult leaders have voices that stand out. Usually on purpose. My talent manager says she loses sleep at night wondering if he actually thinks vaccines are dangerous, or if he just wants to be famous and important like his dad and uncle, even if he's famous for all the wrong reasons. Like, does he want to go down in history for bringing back polio because he's just compelled to go down in history for something? Says Lizzie. It's been a really wretched couple months at the CDC. Lots of top scientists and best minds working there were fired or forced out. RFK handpicked his own people, who by all appearances seemed to be enthusiastic supporters of his dangerous agenda. Just this month, there was a shooting at CDC headquarters in Atlanta by a person protesting COVID-19 vaccines. And this week, there has been even more uproar and confusion at the CDC when Kennedy demanded that CDC head Dr. Susan Monarez comply with his demands about vaccine advisory panels and fire even more people, and she refused to do so. So RFK fired her, and she refused to step down. There are questions about the legality of her firing, but hats off to her for refusing to just follow orders that are dangerous to all Americans. Do not comply in advance. So it looks like her successor will be Jim O'Neill, tech investor and colleague of Peter Thiel, who is, like Kennedy himself, not a doctor. So Americans watching this, make sure to talk to your doctors about what they, experts in healthcare, think is best for you as an individual. Do what you feel is right for you, regardless of what people who are not experts tell you. And please, please, please look for experts around you in your everyday lives and pay attention to what they're saying. And remember that cults always hate medical care.